On this mission, we will learn a realistic procedure for cold starting the La7 La7, as simulated for DCS. The mission is set on 1947 at Anapa Air Base, at a time when this aircraft was still in service. Press spacebar to begin. The aircraft's radio is not yet simulated, so for now we can only communicate with the ground crew, provided that the canopy is open. The control bindings to open or close the canopy must be held down until the canopy is in the desired position. Close and open the canopy to continue the training. At night, you can turn the flashlight on or off with the left Alt+L keys. Turn on the flashlight to continue the training. To prevent the aircraft from moving during the engine start, we will ask the ground crew to place wheel chocks. Remember that the canopy must be open, for the crew to hear your orders. Call up the DCS communications menu, pressing the # key. Next, select F8, ground crew, F4, wheel chocks, F1, on.
Установить колодки. Принял. Командир, колодки установлены.
Next, ask ground crew to connect the compressed air supply bottle, to avoid depleting the aircraft's own supply during the engine start. Call up the DCS communications menu again, by pressing the # key. Then select F8, ground crew, F5, ground air supply, F1, connect.
Подключить воздушное питание. Принял. Командир, воздушное питание подключено.
Open the fuel valve, on the cockpit floor, by clicking on it. It points to the right when closed and to the front when open. Ensure the supercharger lever is set to its first gear, full aft, click on it to change its position. Toggle the lever forward then aft, to advance the training. To have a faster engine warm-up, close the oil radiator cooling flap, by moving its lever fully aft until it is vertical. Check the propeller pitch lever is set to low pitch, full forward. Move the lever aft then forward, to advance the training. Close the engine front cowl flaps, by turning their control wheel fully aft, for a faster warm-up. This will adjust the cooling airflow over the engine cylinders. Also close the engine side cowl flaps, by turning their control wheel fully aft. This will adjust the amount of cooling air passing through the engine compartment, but note that when open there is greater aerodynamic drag, reducing the aircraft's maximum speed. Order the ground crew to open the valve of the ground air bottle, by pressing the / key. Select F8, ground crew, F5, ground air supply, F3, apply.
Подать воздух.
Once the crew confirms, open the compressed air supply valve by clicking on it. Check that the pneumatic air pressure is now over 80 kilograms per squared centimeter. Press spacebar to continue. Prior to turning the propeller by hand, confirm that both the battery and the ignition magnetos are switched off. Battery switch down, magnetos selector at 0. Next ask the ground crew to turn the propeller by hand through a couple of turns. Select F8, ground crew, F6, turn the prop.
Принял.
While the crew turns the propeller, fill the fuel system using the onboard hand primer pump, with a click and hold over the lever and then dragging the mouse forward and back. While pumping, monitor the fuel pressure on the triple pointer gauge. It should reach between 1 and 1.2 kilograms per squared centimeter. Note that you can operate the lever without having it in view, but you would need some kind of head tracking device on your system. Good, the fuel pressure has reached the proper level. You can stop pumping for now, but you will need to pump again later if the pressure drops too much while starting. Press spacebar to continue the training. Enable the engine starter fuel pump, by turning its primary fuel switch to its horizontal position. Next fill the starter fuel pump chamber, by stroking its plunger with a click and hold over its yellow handle and then dragging the mouse forward and back. Complete filling of the chamber requires 9 plunger strokes, and you will note that the plunger will no longer be able to move once the fuel chamber is full. Press spacebar once you've finished priming the pump. Set the throttle lever 1 cm beyond its aft stop, which will correspond to an 800 to 900 RPM idle once the engine starts. Good, we are now ready to start the engine. Press spacebar to begin. Turn on the battery switch, the light of the compass should illuminate. As it's pretty dark, also turn on the instruments lighting. Open the valve to supply compressed air to the engine starter by clicking on it. The propeller will begin to rotate. After 1 or 2 propeller rotations, quickly switch both magnetos to on. Lift the cover of the starter buttons. Press and hold the starter buttons, release them once the engine starts and its RPM reaches 300. Quickly stroke the hand primer pump to maintain fuel pressure until the engine is running steadily. That's a good start. Advance the throttle to 1000 RPM and maintain that speed until the oil temperature begins to rise. Close the starting air valve fully to stop the compressed air supply to the starter pump. Then ask ground crew to disconnect the compressed air supply bottle by pressing \. Select F8, ground crew, F5, ground air supply, F2, disconnect.
Отключить воздушное питание. Принял. Командир,
This completes the
воздушное питание
engine start, but you
отключено.
must now follow up with the engine warm-up. Press spacebar to continue. Once the oil temperature begins to rise, increase RPM to 1200. Good. Continue warming up the engine at this speed until the oil temperature reaches 50 degrees Celsius and the cylinder head temperature reaches 140 degrees. Cylinder head temperature reaches 140 degrees Celsius. You should now open the engine cowl flaps by moving their lever fully forward. Congratulations, the engine is now fully warmed up and this training has been successfully completed. Press spacebar to exit the mission.